trust me, for 2 years and a half, I didn't know anything about a Starbucks. I didn't know anything about going and taking a walk at the beach, because my schedule was so tight from 6 o'clock in the morning all the way into 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would only sleep a couple of hours in order to make things happen.
Welcome to the Crossing It Off podcast, where we believe living with intention through a bucket list lifestyle is a great way to bring yourself personal joy. As you are crossing items off your list, you're actually filling up your bucket. The more items you cross off, the more joy gets added, until eventually your joy spills over into the lives of those around you. My name is Roger Williams, and as the host of this show, I will be interviewing guests, people just like you that are crossing items off their own bucket list. My hope is that by hearing these stories, you will be inspired and empowered to cross items off your own bucket list. When you find something impactful for your journey, we invite you to share the episode with one other person and leave an honest rating or review of the show. This is an amazing way for you to gift those feelings of inspiration and joy to others. Now let's start crossing it off together. Welcome everybody to another episode of Crossing It Off podcast. I am super excited today for my guest to be here and share her experience. Yvette Duraze is an author and a mother and a passionate about her stuff. We're glad that she's here. Yvette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Roger, for inviting me and for inviting me to your audience.
Yeah. So tell them, what did you cross off your bucket list?
What I crossed off my bucket list is the ability to do a master's degree while working full time and also raising my daughter.
Okay, so let's walk back in time. You've got your bachelor's. Where are you in life at that point, and what's going on, and why was it so important for you to, at that point in your life, to say, I'm going to put getting a master's on my bucket list?
Well, I found it very important because, I graduated from a bachelor's degree back in the days when bachelor's degree really were very worth it. And I'm saying that because of the fact that I am Latina, I didn't get mentorship and I didn't know how to go about, after getting a bachelor's degree, how to utilize my bachelor's degree. To put it in short, I got my bachelor's degree. I didn't know what else to do. And I ended up going and applying for a job as a receptionist with a bachelor's degree. And we're talking, I don't want to age myself, but we're talking about over 25 years ago. And that set me very much backwards because I started with a very low salary, with jobs that, people would not see the ability to where to raise me and help me to develop. And that really set me back economically, and career-wise. I didn't know what I know now that I'm trying to share with my own children and with the children's of those friends that I get to touch, and I share with them all that I know now that universities can bring and the organizations do to recruit students like me. That if I would have had been recruited by an organization, another story I would be counting or sharing today with you, Roger. But the idea about getting a master's degree was the idea about how can I get out of the situation of the job that I had to be able to get to the next level, thinking that it was the degree that the most that I needed. But in reality, after years passed, I realized that it was the fact that, I'm Latina and that there wasn't a lot of support around the family, a lot of mentors. And I ended up in jobs that didn't care less about helping diversity, put it in short. And eventually, in years past, I learned that even that university where I used to work with even had a Proposition 209 that they didn't have any fiduciary responsibility with affirmative actions in diversity. So I was working for one of the biggest employers in the area where I lived, and yet I was not able to get anywhere. And it was getting to the point that years were passing, and somehow the money was not enough to be able to live and pay rent and live.
Once you decided, like, I'm going to go get this degree, were there programs in place to help you at the university, or did you have to do it all yourself?
I had to do it all myself. As much as I mentioned to my employer and my supervisor, there was never any support, never help. So I had to go by myself, figure it out, how to get a loan to pay for my master's degree. It was not an option for me to quit my job and go full blown as a student. So I had to figure it out how to work full time, be able to go and get a master's degree and do it all simultaneously at the same time and figure it out. So I ended up having to pick up a loan in order to, fund my own master's degree in order to make my dream come true.
How long was the program that you got your degree in, and how long did it take you to complete it? Because it sounds like you had a lot of stuff going on that you wouldn't do a traditional program. You wouldn't do a traditional time frame. So how long did it take you to complete the program, and how long should it, the university say it should take?
Well, actually, I ended up going to a state university, a traditional university, but it happens that they had this master's degree under what they call extension, which is for professionals that want to advance themselves in their career. And the only difference is that because it was through extension, the university extension, I couldn't go through the regular financial aid process. I had to go and get a loan. If I would have gone through the regular university daytime, then I would have probably perhaps get the opportunity to get financial aid. But, it wasn't the option because at the same time I was raising my daughter and I didn't have any family to support me in any way. So I had to really figure it out all by myself. So it took me approximately 2 years and a half. I did it exactly what it probably would have taken someone to do it in a regular, day. That's why when people say, I have 14 units or 12 units and I still cannot do this and they're not working, I look at them and it's like, you know what? If you want, you can make it happen. I know it's not easy, but trust me, for 2 years and a half, I didn't know anything about a Starbucks. I didn't know anything about going and taking a walk at the beach, because my schedule was so tight from 6 o'clock in the morning all the way into 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would only sleep a couple of hours in order to make things happen.
Yeah. So walk us through that a little bit. Like, how did you go from like doing a 9 to 5 and adding and being a parent and adding all this other stuff? What were some of the resources that you used, or how did you manage your time in such a way? Because I think that's just absolutely incredible that you did it on time, and being in that situation. So how did that work for you? What were some of the things you had to personally do to make that happen?
Well, let me add to it that not only that was I doing a master's degree, I also was doing a certificate program as a coach because somehow I figured out that the master's degree was going to go hand in hand with a coaching credential.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that the coaching program was also very similar to a master's degree because it was a 1 year commitment and where I had homework. I had to travel every 2 months to a different location to spend a weekend, a 4-day weekend, in order to, build up that skill. And on top of that, Roger, I also was suffering from health issues and severe and debilitating anxiety, and where I didn't want to take medication because I was so afraid of medication, and I have, I'm one of those people that maybe you have heard of that are functional people with anxiety. I'm always, on and off. I have anxiety and I have learned how to manage it, but, sometimes get a little bit out of control. But you know what? Nothing stopped me. I figure out, I always figure out a way.
Yeah. You're doing all this. You have how many children at the time?
I had 2, but I was raising my daughter because my son decided to go and stay and live with his dad.
Okay.
So yeah, I was full-time mom.
While you were doing it, do you think that she understood what you were going through and what sacrifices you were making, and especially probably making them for her? Was she understanding of that process?
Sadly to say, no.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the relationship with my ex-husband, that he was very upset about the situation of the divorce, he was always overshadowing the ability to me to make an impact, and also the fact that all of a sudden, imagine this, all of a sudden I got divorced. I'm a type A personality with a lot of energy. I used to coordinate events for the city, a lot of energy, and all of a sudden mom becomes sick, right? And all of a sudden I'm not fully functional. I became extremely introverted. Now if I do my personality test, I'm half and half because of all the years that I had to deal with these recurrency issues of health. And I think that affected her. And we have talked about it, with my daughter, and it has affected her. And I think that she felt lonely. I think that affected her. And I don't think to these years, she still can see all the stuff that I sacrificed and all the things that I got not to do and not to enjoy or anything in order to make things happen.
Here at the Crossing It Off podcast, we are passionate about inspiring you in your bucket list lifestyle and empowering you to live out your lists. We offer many resources to assist you in your bucket list journey, such as web resources in the show notes, bucket list mentoring services, my book Live Out Your Lists, a private Facebook group for you to share your bucket list success stories with others, and more. All of these can be found at crossingitoffpodcast.com. Find the resource that fits your need so that you can live out your list. Now back to the show.
But I think as she grows up and goes through life experiences, she will probably retrospect and see, wow, my mom did all of this and she was alone and nobody was helping her. She didn't have a relationship or a boyfriend, anything like that, because I was a very traditional mom. I never brought anybody to home. I didn't date. I refused to date because she was very young and being a girl. And I pretty much, single-handed pretty much the entire parenting, as you can imagine. But eventually, I hope that one of these days, what I have done will impact her and she will do things, in a bigger scale because, she had the experience to see somebody in the works struggling, doing everything that I was doing. Yeah, and you know what? It is one of those things. The same child can be born and raised in the same family. Both of those children will see life very differently, will create meaning of life very differently. And that's something that, a lot of us as parents don't have control over that, right? Yeah. And we always try to do the best. But nevertheless, I keep supporting her and helping her out. She has gone through life challenges as well, and trying to get her engineering degree. I'm still helping her out as much as I can. Yeah. To make it happen because I feel that in this era of life, I think women should be able to take care of their own selves in order to be in a position to be in a relationship because they want to, not because they have to. Yeah. Just like it happened to me. I was actually married when I was 16 years old. I was very young. And my only way out that I knew was my education. Yeah. It was not running with another person. It was not getting to another relationship. Up until this day, I'm still single because I became very picky after that. I take care of my own self. I take care of my own financial needs, and it becomes difficult because then you become very extremely picky, if you may, because you want to make sure you find that right partner that will add to your peace and add to your life, not take away from. And yeah. I got to learn how to recognize those individuals very fast, and I run the other way whenever I see somebody like that.
Yeah, I think that we're responsible for our own joy. Always.
Yes, exactly.
So having had that experience where you have to provide that for yourself, I think is a great learning opportunity to say, I can provide my own joy. I don't need to rely on somebody else to do that for me. Speaking of joy, you go through this, you do all this hard work, you do it on your own, and you get to the end of the program. Did you walk on graduation day? Did you wear a cap and gown?
Well, actually, I almost didn't, but somebody encouraged me to do it
Good.
just to make it memorable. Because
Yeah.
I had to go all the way to LA because the university is in LA, and
Wow.
I was all like with the anxiety. I didn't, it was hard for me to drive. Imagine that, it was hard for me to drive with the anxiety. But I somebody that knows me, a good friend says, you have to do it. You have to bring your children along, and you have to do it to make it memorable. And I
Yeah.
actually did. But unfortunately, not right away, the master's degree made an impact in my career. Why? Because I was still stuck in the same organization, trying to let them know, look up all what I have done. Please help me out. I want to build my career here. It never happened. But nevertheless, on the side, I was working full time, and on the side, I was going to any place that they allowed me to give a talk, and I was reading, and I wanted to become an expert in the field of work that I went and got my master's degree on, and then that is what I dedicated myself for several years too.
Yeah, so let's stick on the graduation, because I think your friend was right. It's super important, right? Because that is the ultimate crossing off the item.
Yes,
In your case,
exactly.
it's like walking that stage, because I'm in the semi in the same boat. I got my bachelor's degree when I was 44 years old, and so it was like
Kudos.
I'm walking. I did this. I come from a first generation family myself, and I'm like, this is something that's not normal, and I'm going to walk, and I'm going to show my kids that. And so what was that experience like for you, that day where you got to move the tassel and walk into whatever venue that they were holding the graduation? How did you personally feel at that moment about this thing that you've crossed off?
Oh my God, it was liberating in a way,
Mm,
but then with another responsibility that I still haven't find my way to build joy into my life, a work and life balance, if you can say that. And that was like, okay, well, now I already crossed this. I already graduated a master's degree. I already graduated my coaching program. What's next, right? What is
mm,
next? And then that is what I said, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead, and for my birthday, after I graduated in June, and then for my birthday, I'm gonna go to the county department, and I'm gonna open up my consulting business. That's gonna be my gift. And that
nice.
is exactly what I did. I went in 2011, I went and walked to the county and say, that day, my day of my birthday, I opened up my consulting business. And I said, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to start going to network events, and I'm talking in any platform that they invite me to, and to talk about, the field of conflict management in the workplace. And the interesting thing that I found, that it wasn't that it wasn't very welcoming, but it was like a taboo. Now, with everything that we have been dealing with in these past 3 years,
Hmm.
now they start more and more talking about the fact that it is a very valuable skill, and it's a most needed skill in the workplace, right? And I started, giving talks and sharing my experience and expertise with nonprofit organizations, any associations that had to do with professionals, the Human Resource Project Management Institute. I went to conference of my own field to give talks and talks, and that allowed me, because I didn't have that support system, that mentorship program, that allowed me through years to realize that, yeah, I am a specialist. At first it was very hard for me to call myself a specialist, and because I didn't have the job, or I didn't have the title.
Hmm.
And it took years, to be able to do that. Eventually, not only did I got my master's degree, not only that I went through all this struggle with my health, being a single mom, but I also have my stories of having workplace hostility
Mm.
in the workplace while I was studying my master's degree. And the only thing that I was able to create meaning off of that so that it wouldn't affect me as much on my health was that I was going through that same experience because I wanted to be a specialist in this area, an expert. And if I didn't know firsthand what could happen to an individual going through bullying, going through micromanagement, going through clicks, going through all of these type of hostile environments, how would I be able to support and help other people and coach them out of there, or coach organizations into building harmonious workplace relationships?
You mentioned, we'll get there. You mentioned mentoring, right? You mentioned, so if someone came to you and was in the same position, they didn't know how to navigate the system, they wanted to progress in their environment, in their job place, and looking at getting a master's degree was a thing, and they also, same situation with you as far as all these other things in life going along during that process. What's like one piece of practical advice that you would give that person? They said, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting a master's degree on my bucket list, but I'm a single mom." What would be the piece of advice you would give them and say, you're going to be successful if you do X?
I had because I was studying to become a coach, I had to have my own coach. So the getting coaching really helped a lot. And obviously my desires to really make a difference with the career that I was building. I really fell in love with the master's degree. I became very passionate about it. And I felt that was going to be the energy driver, right? The coaching, the passion that I had, and my willingness to get out of the situation that I was into, because the standard of living, the inflation was going up, and I wasn't making it through. It was getting to a point that it was just difficult even to pay rent. And I live in California, and California tends to be very expensive. Oh, yeah. And I think that between not having a lot of choice or actually I could have had choices, people would say, well, why don't you went out and marry a guy, and somebody, no, but that was not an option for me, because I said, I have my daughter, I need to make sure I take care of her, and she has the best environment possible. But I knew that through my career, that was my way out. And I think that it's doable. I would tell to that person that it's doable, that shut down people that said that they're not to do it, that you're gonna do, you're gonna miss out on things. You will miss out on things like everything else in life. But if you have the satisfaction that you check out this huge thing out of your bucket list, it can change and transform your life.
So tell us, it sounds like you're very passionate about the experience you went through, to the point where you wrote a book. So what's the premise of your book, and how did going through that process of getting your certificate and the bachelor's degree inform you writing the book?
Well, the book is about conflict intelligence, how to turbocharge leaders and organizations' emotional intelligence to become conflict intelligent. And as I was working with people, and I sometimes was volunteering my work and working and coaching people and going into a few companies here and there that will bring me in, I noticed that I had developed a methodology. And I noticed that I was having good results with people, but it was very difficult to quantify because, I'm a specialist in the area. I'm not a business expert. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, the topics that I was working with companies with, they were very confidential, right? Because sometimes I would go into mediation, sometimes I would go in and deal with organizational conflict. So it was very difficult to get testimonials, right? And get information that will help me to build a case that I have built this methodology. So I said, well, I'm going to write a book then, and I'm going to share a little bit about my methodology so that accentuates that I know what I'm talking about, and be able to have something out there for people to read and to make a difference.
Yvette, what's something else on your bucket list that you want to cross off?
I think that right now what I want to cross off, after 10 years, almost 11 years, I want to get to that point where my book in my consulting business makes an impact in organization.
Yvette, how can people find out more information about your book and the work that you do?
Well, if they Google my name, they could find a whole bunch of podcasts, YouTube videos, Yvette Duraze. The other website is unityconsultant.com. My book is in Amazon. And I'm doing it everything by myself, very organic. That's why you're not gonna see a whole bunch of reviews, because I'm not gonna spend the 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 to pay somebody to put me as a bestseller and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm doing it all organically. But the book is there, and I think that, I'm making an impact just to having that book out there and having it for people to have the opportunity to learn these skills. I think that the most valuable weapon, if you may, is your mouth. You can kill people through your mouth, or you can impact people through your mouth.
That is a great
conflict,
place.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
Conflict
place to
resolution.
stop. Yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
place to end. I'm so grateful that you came on today. I know this is going to be impactful for folks, and all of your links will be in the show notes for them to be able to find you. And Yvette, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Roger, for inviting me.